Hello, I'm Peter Holland. I'm pleased to introduce Craig from Pixel Spirits, who's going to tell us all about his fabulous rum. Craig, nobody wants to hear me chat. They want to hear it all from yourself. So please tell us all about you, your background, why rum production, and then we can try a tot of rum as well, just to kind of do a little tasting part on it. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, so thank you for welcoming me along. It's great to chat with some rum lovers. So basically, well, Pixel Spirits, our story really started roughly about 8 years ago. My wife and I, we bought a little hotel bar and restaurant near Glencoe. And basically, we started the distillery a few years later because we wanted to make our own spirits for our own bar. We kind of started off mostly, perhaps what we're most famous with gin and such. And then roughly about 2 years ago, we finally got our approvals to begin making some little small batch rum on site here. And yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind journey. We've learned a lot, we've made a lot of mistakes, but you know, we're starting to produce something that we hope is going to be lovely for the consumer. So basically, yeah, when we were doing this, we were lucky that just behind our hotel were these two small barns, which were basically just derelict and full of junk. So we stripped them back and we converted them over a period of about 2 years into our little craft distillery. We hoped the process would be much faster. We hoped it would be about a year, but in the end, because it was myself and one of the other members of the hotel team who did kind of the entire conversion before we brought in, obviously, a qualified electrician. It took rather longer, as you can imagine, in the winters up here when there was no doors on these old barns. It was not so pleasant to come into. But yeah, so we finally opened our doors in October 2017, launched our first gins mid-November 2017, and yeah, we've only just this year been starting to launch our rums after almost like 2 years. Essentially, that's mostly because, well, yeah, at first, we were just learning as we go and just trialing and testing, and things weren't quite working or not to kind of the standard that we wanted. And yeah, basically at first we only had our 100 litre still. And to give you an indication, basically we were doing about 8 to 10 stripping runs, sometimes even 12 depending on the quality of our ferment, to do one finishing run to make about 30 to 40 litres of finished product. So yeah, we were making so little that actually getting enough inside oak or out as a white rum was proving very difficult. We've kind of managed to sort that towards the end of last year. We invested in a 500 litre still, which we do all of our stripping runs on now. So that means we can do basically 2 stripping runs to create about that 30 to 40 litres of white rum, which we then, most of it then goes into oak casks, and the rest then goes out as a white rum for mixed drinks, for cocktails or such.
See, I mean, so the rum we have today, actually, before we go and do a little thing, because we're going to do a little something different to some of the other interviews we've been recording. We're going to get a little glimpse behind the scenes of the setup, which I'm really excited about. But I'm gonna pour the white that I got a little taster of, that the folks will have in their tasting sets as well. Maybe you could just take us through it, perhaps, and we maybe talk a little bit about the actual tasting of the product itself. Is that a thing?
Absolutely. So our white rum, it's only distilled twice, essentially. So we didn't want to over distill it to remove some of the actual character that comes from the molasses and the yeast. So it's completely unaged. So basically, yeah, we ferment on site our molasses, sugar, yeast, and water into our lovely sugar beer. After about a week, that'll be about 8 to 10%. We'll take that and we'll then put it inside our stripping still. We'll distill that up to our low wine to about 30 to 40%. We'll then take that, put it inside our finishing still, and distill it up to a white rum of about 75%. For the white rum, we then just gradually add a little bit of water at a time to take it to bottling strength, which for this one is 43%. So we kind of love it because it's almost got slightly kind of Rice Krispie-ish, kind of creamy-ish vibes. It's quite light, which makes it an easy mixer for drinks. It's not too kind of potent. which we love, because especially if you're mixing cocktails, it's nice to have something that sits there, provides the strength and the balance, but doesn't overpower some of the other things that you're putting in as well.
Yeah, I was going to actually, it's funny how you say the Rice Krispies. I was sort of searching for I've held on with these. I don't want to open them until I do these interviews, rather than sort of be I know it kind of like then puts me on the spot, because then I have to kind of, what is it I'm actually tasting? But there is a kind of a sort of a yeasty kind of nose to it. And I was sort of thinking bready, cereally kind of thing. And you say Rice Krispies, that's it. You've nailed it. Exactly. That is 100% exactly what I'm getting. There's a lovely mouthfeel to it, though. Lovely, I say, lovely and creamy, lovely mouthfeel. Really good, really nice. Not a little bit of warmth in there. You just bring it down. You don't add anything afterwards.
No, nothing added afterwards. Just simply we filter our water and use that just to gradually dilute it down. So usually, I mean, the turnaround for, say, like a batch of our white rum, because we're doing basically 2 stripping runs, and for each one we've only got 3 fermenters. So basically, and they're very small, 125 litre ones. So basically, each batch of white rum, you're looking at about, like 6 weeks on turnaround, which is quite ridiculously long, and which is why I mean, most of our products we just sell like through our online web shop at like pixelspirits.co.uk, or from a few select suppliers who've helped us out over the years, until we can actually scale up a bit and make a bit more product.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit different from making a gin. But then, of course, I guess in that case you'd be buying in the neutral grain spirit and process it.
Exactly. So yeah, it's been a bit more lengthy process, but we kind of loved every step of the way, because there's something amazing about making something completely from scratch and actually seeing it kind of come to life quite literally when you're seeing the ferment bubbling away. There's something magical about that that's quite special, and so we take pride in the bottles. We know that certainly with like our more aged products, we've still got a bit more time before some of the bigger like former bourbon barrels and things are launched. At the moment, we're using kind of really small 5 to 10 litre kind of virgin oak casks for our initial golden rum release, and then we've got some larger 30 litre kind of blood tubs that we're filling gradually to age that. So we've got probably one of those being released in roughly about 6 months' time once it's ready.
Very cool. So I mean, like, it's interesting you started your company so long ago, relatively speaking. It feels like a long time, let's put it that way. Then to start the rum, and then to kind of hit lockdown and everything else, has this kind of changed your approach, or has it allowed you to focus even?
Well, it's allowed us a little bit more time, because when you're we during lockdown we did like sanitizer. Our web shop was kind of performing better than before, but obviously with all the bars, most shops kind of closed, we had to be a bit more creative with our approach, but also it did leave us more time to kind of start more experimentation, start researching a bit better, so that we can more finely tune some of our products. Which was great. It also allowed us time to, release our little artisan range. Because previously, basically, for the last few years, we've just been selling basically 2 gins, plus making some contract distillations and things. But during lockdown, we launched quite a few products on our artisan range. So that was a lot of fun, coming up with some kind of creative ideas. We've also been, during lockdown, we also started toying with a botanical rum project. We haven't quite perfected the recipe for that, but we're having quite a lot of fun trying.
I get it. So yeah, I mean, for me, it felt like it was going to be an obvious step, but when I was looking into the company details beforehand, that's not what you were leading with. And I thought with a gin company would have been the first and obvious. So I'm excited to see when you do launch it. I'll be excited to see what you come up with.
We wanted, because with our botanical rum that we're developing, we wanted to make it with our own white rum. So first you have to make that base correct before you kind of then develop it further. So, and also because of the scale of operations, actually making enough to then have some free to pop in a still and to trial and test. We haven't quite had that, but we're getting there.
I guess if it takes 6 days to make a rum, then you got to be circumspect with that spirit you're making. You can't just blow it all on R&D straight away.
Yeah, and well, also because, well, as well as in the classroom that we're sitting in just now, we always had this as a gin school, but now it's a gin and rum school. And so we also use like our white rum in here as well. So when people come on the class, they're actually using product developed here. So that also takes a little bit of our product away as well. So.
But well, cool. How have you found like the Scottish rum scene? I'm sort of like, I want to, as soon as you kind of get up and show us it, show us the rest of the place. Let's get all the questions out of the way first before we go off and do that. But the Scottish rum scene at the moment, like, how are you finding it? I mean, like a year ago, it felt like there was a lot of companies involved with rum, and now just even more.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it's a bit like the craft breweries or the craft gin. We're starting to see more and more exciting brands coming through with nice, with amazing products, but also nice marketing ideas. It's really exciting to see that people are kind of taking it up, and especially the following as well. It seems to grow year on year, which is terrific. Because well, it's certainly a product that my wife and I are very, very fond of, and so it's great to see more and more people kind of taking that up too, and also like. That's from kind of beginner level all the way, well, beginner drinker level, all the way to like really serious, in-depth people who know kind of everything about rum and have amazing questions that, as quite a novice at making rum, I'm not always the best at answering, but we'll always give it a go to the best of our knowledge at least.
Exactly. So you're out in the countryside. If I'm looking at the social media, your Instagram does share some beautiful photos at times. I'm quite jealous. But does that present an issue, like in terms of getting materials and things to you? I mean, you know.
Yeah, it can. If I'm completely honest, I mean, if you look at kind of a craft distillery map of Scotland, then you tend to find most of it is kind of central belt or east coast based, mostly because. Well, our distribution is one of the challenges. Our courier systems, or even if we order things, then the pallet charge or such is significant compared to other parts of the country. It also takes a bit longer to get here usually, and often they'll say your pallet of bottles is arriving on Friday, and then it's like the next Thursday. And you have no idea when it's coming, so you just have to walk up. By contrast, some days it surprises you and it's a few days early, and you haven't quite made space for everything arriving. but I wouldn't have it any other way. Where we live is one of the most like picturesque and scenic areas around, and it's really amazing. Like I get the privilege of doing lots of deliveries in person around the area, so. I don't mind the drive, it's quite pleasant.
So it feels like Scotland really is kind of sort of, there are various hotspots around the UK, I would say, but Scotland seems to be. Is it something about the drinkers in general? Is it, what do you think that's the attraction? Is it buying local, or is it because actually they're all rum fiends in waiting to kind of wait for a good product?
Well, maybe it's a bit of both. I mean, certainly like the rise in purchasing local. Scotland is also a huge like tourism destination, and certainly as things open up, as people travel around the country, they want to try the local produce from that area, whether it's fish, whether it's meat, whether it's in fact spirits. It's great to see, and certainly when you look across, say, a lot of the UK, say in large parts of like England, for example, it's different kind of key areas, whereas Scotland as a brand is often considered as local. So our local craft distillery might be quite far away, but it's still viewed as local as well.
Yeah, fair play. Cool. That's good. And I say I'm sure you mentioned earlier you thought that your white was sort of light. I wouldn't actually class it as light. I think there's plenty of character in there for a spirit as distilled. And I honestly can't wait to try some of your matured, your aged stock when it comes online as well. Cool. Can we have a look around?
Absolutely. So as we move through, you'll have to forgive me as I carry the laptop, and I'll set you down somewhere solid so that you don't bump around too much. Don't want any seasickness.
Fingers crossed. It all worked quite nicely the other day in the dry run. So
So I'll take you through where it first all starts. So to our fermentation vessels. So
you don't get that. You don't get this with other rum festivals. This is all kind of behind the scenes kind of stuff. This is wonderful.
yeah, so here we have our 3 little rum tanks for our fermentation. Basically, these are 125-liter tanks. We'll fill them with our molasses, sugar, yeast, and water, and rough fermentation, about 7 or 8 days usually. We keep them at a nice even temperature, which in the Highlands isn't too difficult because we don't really get significant heat waves or such. So it's just a nice, slow, steady ferment. I'll open up a top, shall I? And you can have a look in. This one's maybe about 2 or 3 days away from the fermentation being finished. So just quickly.
You're setting the standard for everyone else.
The smell is incredible. I'm just being very careful not to drop you in as I just did with the lid. But yeah, you'll see it's just nicely, gently bubbling away there, creating some wonderful rum. So that's where we kind of do our fermentation. But let me show you downstairs. After that ferment's ready, we'll take it downstairs.
So what sort of ABV does the wine finish at?
So it'll usually be about 8 to 10% on average, which is a perfect starting point for like our stripping runs and things like that. So over here, here we have our latest edition. So basically it's a 500-liter ice still, but it's the pot still version. So unlike some of the kind of more hybrid versions, it doesn't have any column packing. So basically it just works as a standard kind of like pot still. So we'll fill up the boiler, usually to about 60% fill, because after the fermentation, there's still quite a lot of gas in the liquid. And so if we were to fill it more than 60%, then we're going to get a lot of messy stuff up in our column. So we just fill it to 60%, turn it on, and we'll basically strip all the way to about 98 degrees Celsius. So we collect all the alcohol. We'll do that twice, basically because, well, we've got 3 fermenters. We need each 3 for each distillation, so that's another week on after. So we'll do that twice. Then once we've collected enough of our low wines, we'll then run them through our smaller little still. So our little 100-liter ice still. So this is what we do our finishing runs on. So basically, once we've collected our low wines of about 35%, we'll then take those and we'll bring them over to our smaller 100-liter still. So basically another ice still, but this one has column packing up inside the column here. So we'll take our low wines and we'll pop them inside the still. And as we distill, our rum vapors will start, after about 78 degrees, they'll start traveling up our main column here. But the column here is packed with thousands and thousands of what look like little metal springs. And those little metal springs our rum vapors will condense on, will drop back down into the boiler, and that process will repeat itself on average about 8 to 10 times. Every single time we're just getting more of those wonderful flavors throughout our product. But eventually those springs will achieve the same temperature as our vapors. And at that stage, they'll then continue their way right up to the top of the column. So up the top there, you've got what's basically a condenser, just a cooling unit, which will condense our rum, back from vapor into liquid, and then it'll run out of our still, and then hopefully, if we remember it, into some kind of collection bucket. If not, we've got a lovely fragrant floor, but it's not the mistake we want to be making. So once we've collected that, we then just gradually add a little bit of water. As I said earlier, most of it then goes into like oak casks. I'll just swivel the computer around a little bit so that you can kind of see. So over here we have some of our vessels. So these 2 down the bottom here, so those were the first 2 larger former bourbon casks that we filled. One is about like 6 months away, hopefully, from being ready. They came originally from Kings County Distillery over in New York. These ones here just kind of standard former kind of ex-bourbon ones as well. Most of the stuff we've been releasing at the moment under like our golden rum has been matured in much, much smaller casks. Let me grab a couple so you can see. So So these are, well, this one's virgin American oak. It's only like a 5 litre, so you don't get much, many bottles out of one of these ones that's aged. Or we have a bit heavier, some like 10 litre Italian oak here. So just a variety. We're still everyday learning and trialing, testing, seeing what works for our products and what works for us, you know, because we basically started off just having a little vision, a little idea, and learning how to do it more or less ourselves. Help from a few friends who knew a little bit along the way, but yeah, mostly just ourselves making rum in a shed.
It's wonderful. I like the idea of the different oak casks, because I mean that's going to give a different profile. I mean, you know, if you get to the point where you've got a few litres of each, that's going to make a wonderful blend of all of them together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's something that we're kind of toying about with. We're keeping a little bit back from things and seeing, you know, like as we blend different ones, what kind of tannins, what vanillins, what are released from the woods. And then that'll continue once we move on to these kind of bigger bourbon ones, once we start pouring those out, and that'll be a lot of fun.
So it feels like rum production must be a large part of your day, or the regular production. I mean, how does this?
Yeah, it is now, certainly. Although, I mean, a lot of that is just waiting for the ferment to be ready, essentially, because that's the longest part of the process. But yeah, certainly on our like monthly planner, it's certainly taking up more and more space, which is great. It means that people are ordering and actually purchasing our rum and hopefully enjoying it.
Fantastic. I really like that. Thank you very much for giving us a little show round. It's going to it's nice to kind of get a little behind the scenes, because I haven't been on a rum distillery visit for a long time, it feels like, anyway, so it's good. It's very good. I love it. What have we got? So we've covered all the bits upstairs. I think we call the tasting and things like that. I think what are your hopes for the next sort of, like, 6 months to a year or so? What do you think you're going to be?
Yeah, well, we've got some quite big plans. So basically, at the far end of our bottling and labeling room, we've got a big storage area. So what we're doing at the moment is we're converting that, moving out with it. It's basically where we store all of our empty boxes, bottles, things like that. So we're moving those out, and we're putting in more space for aging product. So basically, it's going to be like our mini warehouse. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll be moving all of these casks up there as soon as it's kind of ready for that. We're also just adding a little on-site shop. Basically, outside of this room, there's a former, basically like a laundry room. So we're going to convert that to a little on-site shop, so that when people are passing through the area, they can come to the shop, they can see all of our products, but also it has a cheeky little door which comes into the still room, so we can just go, oh, you can see it being made as you visit. So that'll be nice. That'll be nice. We're really looking forward to that. But also just kind of gradually scaling up production and trialing and testing new aging barrels and such. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you very much for your time. I've really, really enjoyed this. It's been really good, and I'm looking forward to drinking more of this. I think I have to say, on the empty glass as well, it's like, this well worth checking out. It's a really very nice white rum, and it also stands out from being sufficiently different to the others that I've tried from being produced in Scotland. That means you just have to buy one of everything. You can't claim to have a Scottish rum collection if you don't if you don't buy one of everything.
My rum shelves at home are gradually expanding with Scottish rum, so it's nice to see what everyone else is doing as well, and to see different people's takes and learning more about their production methods, because what I'm doing will probably be very different from what another place is doing, and it's great to see that kind of variety, that diversity. So yeah, it's exciting.
It is exciting times, and hopefully the next Scottish Rum Festival won't be entirely online. We'll actually be in person, and we can all get together and share a top.
Oh, that would be amazing. Look forward to it.
Cool. Right. Thank you very much. We'll see you on and on. Cheers then.
See you soon.